I thank you for this signal recognition of merit. I have been listening to what has been said here about citizenship. You complain of the police. You created the police, and you are responsible for the police. They must reflect you, their masters. Consider that before you blame them. They are citizens just as we are. A little of citizenship ought to be taught at the mother's knee and in the nursery. Citizenship is what makes a republic. Monarchies can get along without it. What keeps a republic on its legs is good citizenship. Citizenship is of the most importance in a land where a body of citizens can change the whole atmosphere of politics, as has been done in Philadelphia. I was going to move to Philadelphia, but it is no place for enterprise now. Dr. Russell spoke of organization. Organization is necessary in all things. It is even necessary in reform. I was in organization myself once, for 12 hours, and accomplished things I could never have done otherwise. I was traveling from Chicago with my publisher and stenographer. I always travel with a bodyguard, and engaged a stateroom on a certain train. For above all its other conveniences, the stateroom gives the privilege of smoking. When we arrived at the station, the conductor told us he was sorry the car with our stateroom was left off. I said, "You are under contract to furnish a stateroom on this train." "I'm in no hurry. I can stay here a week at the road's expense." "It'll have to pay my expenses and a little over." Then the conductor called a grandee, and after some argument he went and bundled some meek people out of the stateroom, told them something not strictly true, and gave it to me. About 11 o'clock the conductor looked in on me and was very kind and winning. He told me he knew my father-in-law. It was much more respectable to know my father-in-law than me in those days. Then he developed his game. He was very sorry the car was only going to Harrisburg. They had telegraphed to Harrisburg, Pittsburgh, San Francisco, and couldn't get another car. He threw himself on my mercy, but to him I only replied, "Then you had better buy the car." I went into the dining car the next morning for breakfast. Ordinarily, I care only for coffee and rolls, but this particular morning I espied an important-looking man on the other side of the car eating broiled chicken. I asked for broiled chicken, and I was told by the waiter and later by the dining car conductor that there was no broiled chicken. There must have been an argument, for the Pullman conductor came in and remarked, "If he wants broiled chicken, give it to him. If you haven't got it on the train, stop somewhere. It will be better for all concerned." I got the chicken. I had forgotten all about this when some time after Mr. Thompson of the Pennsylvania heard I was going to Chicago again and wired, "I am sending my private car. Clemens cannot ride on an ordinary car. He costs too much." It is from experiences such as these that you get your education of life, and you string them into jewels or tinware as you may choose. I have received recently several letters asking my counsel or advice. The principal request is for some incident that may prove helpful to the young. There were a lot of incidents in my career to help me along. Sometimes they helped me along faster than I wanted to go. Here is such a request. It is a telegram from Joplin, Missouri, and it reads, "In what book of your works can we find the definition of a gentleman?" I have not answered that telegram either. I couldn't. It seems to me that if any man has just, merciful, and kindly instincts, he would be a gentleman, for he would need nothing else in the world. I received the other day a letter from my old friend, William Dean Howells. Howells, the head of American literature. No one is able to stand with him. He is an old friend of mine, and he writes me, "Tomorrow I shall be 69 years old." Why, I am surprised at Howells writing that. I have known him longer than that. I am sorry to see a man trying to appear so young. I was born to be afraid of dying, not of getting old, he says. Well, I'm the other way. It's terrible getting old. You gradually lose things and become troublesome. People try to make you think you are not, but I know I'm troublesome. Then he says, no part of life is so enjoyable as the 8th decade. That's true. I've just turned into it, and I enjoy it very much. If old men were not so ridiculous, why didn't he speak for himself? But he goes on, they are ridiculous and they are ugly. I never saw a letter with so many errors in it. Ugly? I was never ugly in my life. 40 years ago, I was not so good looking. A looking glass then lasted me 3 months. Now I can wear it out in 2 days. Let's see. Howell says now, you've been up in Hartford burying poor old Patrick. I suppose he was old too. No, he was never old. Patrick came to us 36 years ago, a brisk, lithe, young Irishman. He was as beautiful in his graces as he was in his spirit, and he was as honest a man as ever lived. For 25 years he was our coachman, and if I were going to describe a gentleman in detail, I would describe Patrick. At my own request, I was his pallbearer with our old gardener. He drove me and my bride so long ago. As the little children came along, he drove them too. He was all the world to them, and for all in my house he had the same feelings of honor, honesty, and affection. He was 60 years old, 10 years younger than I. Howells suggests he was old. He was not so old. He had the same gracious and winning ways to the end. Patrick was a gentleman, and to him I would apply the lines, so may I be courteous to men, faithful to friends, true to my God, a fragrance to the path I trod. He was with us in New Hampshire, with us last summer, and his hair was just as black. His eyes were just as blue, his form just as straight, and his heart just as good as on the day we first met. In all the long years, Patrick never made a mistake. He never needed an order. He never received a command. He knew. I have been asked for my idea of an ideal gentleman, and I give it to you. Patrick McAleer.